Welcome, Facebook. I'm here with Courtney Coupe, the VP of Content from Great Big Story. I was there actually just a few weeks after they'd begun, and there was Wolf Blitzer was not there. There was like it really has kind of a completely different brand and completely different video style than anywhere else.
Yeah, so Great Big Story was basically the brainchild of two of the gentlemen who run video at CNN. They saw that there was a unique opportunity in the marketplace for cinematic storytelling in the digital space. So they basically pitched the idea to Jeff Zucker, who runs CNN, who thought it was a great idea, also saw that unique opportunity, but also recognized the need to set it up completely separate from CNN. CNN's value proposition is news, is breaking news, and really Great Big Story is about storytelling. And so we were able to kind of come in, set up shop. Our first month we were in the CNN building, which anyone who works for the company who was there at the time will tell you was a really hard time to try to launch a company within its own point of view, its own voice, but be surrounded by the news machine that is CNN. We lovingly refer to it as the beige castle, just because there was a lot of beige carpet and beige walls. But we were able to move into our own space in Union Square in August, and it's really when the lights came on, both literally and figuratively, where we were able to kind of tap into our own creativity to find our voice, to figure out what Great Big Story really was, the types of stories we wanted to tell and how we could tell them. And we launched the first video 2 months after that, in October of 2015.
And so how many people did you have at that point? Like how many people were hired as kind of that base team?
The startup team, I think, was around 30 all in. It was a mix of producers, editors, social publishing, our graphics art department, and a small sales team. We are still in the same office space, but I think we've almost doubled in size. And so we are busting at the seams 2.5 years later, putting desks in any open nook or cranny we can find on our floor. I joke that we're going to need bunk beds pretty soon, but that's good for a company within 2 years to have that much growth.
But people think, we could never do it. We're not CNN. You know, we don't have the resources. But really, so you started with 30 people, and you produced how many videos? So
it's always been a question for us, that crossroad of quality and quantity. Because we are not a news brand, we don't necessarily need to hit the quantity. We're not about pushing out hundreds or tens of videos every day, because we really think of ourselves as a micro documentary shop. And so we have a keen eye towards quality. And so how many do you need to produce to hit that bar? Produce enough that people know who you are, expect something new from you every day, but not produce so much that there's a flood of content and they're not seeing all of it. And so from the very beginning, we produce roughly 2 to 3 videos every single day. And that's still the number that we maintain today. We think it's a good number, so that there's something new every day, that we're telling new stories, we're surprising people on a daily basis if that's how they choose to consume us. Or if they choose to kind of find us once a week, they've got new content that they can rabbit hole and stay and watch kind of multiple videos at a time. But it is a very interesting thing that you bring up about CNN and kind of their relationship to us, and what does that all mean. We are a startup, but I recognize we're a startup with a head start, because we do have an investor. So it's been nice to be able to tap into things within the CNN and Turner infrastructure, like our email address, to be honest. Like in those very first days, before we even existed, before we even published a single video and we needed to reach out to book people, it was nice to kind of have an email address that was my name at turner.com. It gave us a little bit of validity before we even existed. We can tap into the legal resources or human resources or the travel department. So the things that typical startups don't really have access to, that big companies do, we can access that. But everything else, when it comes to content creation, we really are an independent entity that operates on its own.
Or the Story Hunter account.
Yes.
When Great Big Story started, Story Hunter had already had a enterprise deal worked out with CNN, so any unit of CNN could use us for payments and contracts or finding freelancers and the freelance management tools we offer. And anyone, I know we're live, so anyone who's just tuning in, we're talking with Courtney Coupe, the one of the kind of people who put together the production side of Great Big Story.
So for us, knowing what Great Big Story was absolutely fed the types of people that we were looking for.
Yeah.
And so for anyone out there looking to do the same, their value propositions might be a little bit different. They might want quantity over quality. They might be like, we want the most amount of views on the most amount of videos possible. So for them, it might be about getting fast editors or getting people who can source video really quickly. It really just kind of comes back to like what you want as that brand and what your value proposition is.
Yeah, that's kind of tough though, balancing between the journalism side and then the kind of commercial, cinematic, or like narrative.
I often say that our producers are unicorns because they are, because it's not everyone who can do both, and that was either a fly in my head that you were wiping away. Oh, it's a unicorn. I was like, what's happening? And they're Swiss Army knives. When I first started at ABC News, kind of back in the 2005 to 2010, everyone had a lane, and they kind of just did the thing that they did. So if they were a producer, they just produced. They didn't pick up the camera. If they were a booker, they just booked. And I don't think that's how this industry really works anymore. Everybody's got to be able to do something and do it all. There are still kind of niche areas where there can be specialists, but producers are being asked to do more now than ever. And so to find people who have both that journalistic background, that strong editorial skill, who also are wizards with their cameras.
That's interesting because you guys always talk about yourself as a storytelling brand, not necessarily a journalism brand, but you need that sort of instinct around story and to...
Absolutely. I think Great Big Story has like the bones of journalism. And I think I've been asked a few times what I think the difference is between journalism and storytelling. And so for me, journalism is the who, the what, the when, the where, and storytelling is the why. But you obviously need the who, the what, the when, the where to get to the why. And so that ability to really understand story, to understand what it needs, how to build it, and how to get it, I do think kind of starts in just... I say journalism, but what that really means is just a really strong understanding of editorial. When we launched, we really thought of ourselves as a digital social video company. Our tagline was "Feed your feed." The idea that there could be real storytelling in your feed. And in the 2.5 years, we still obviously find our videos. You can find us on Facebook, you can find us on YouTube, but I think we've evolved beyond just a digital and social video company. We're thinking about our voice and our brand and storytelling as it expands beyond that. What it means in short film, what it means in long form, in serial, and so how to take that kind of Great Big Story storytelling and take it everywhere. So we've done a primetime show with the Weather Channel. We just got our first 2 Emmy nominations for some programs we put together.
Get some claps.
We didn't win, but
get some claps.
but it was great to be there. We were on the red carpet, which is its own surreal experience that we could do a whole nother Facebook Live talking about. But and just really kind of the brand is growing in lots of fun and interesting, exciting ways, because we just want to tell more stories.
Yeah.
Which sounds so simple and yet.
Yeah, how was the red carpet? What happened?
It was fancy and hot and crowded, but good. Yeah.
And who did you end up? So you started with this. It sounds like you almost started because the people who started it kind of liked this type of storytelling. So you started sticking to your guns, finding your voice, and then who ended up watching it? Who did your audience end up being?
So the word that I hate more than anything in the world is millennial. Yep.
I knew that.
Yep, I've said it before. You've heard me say that. Fun fact, my second least favorite word is moist, but there we go. So, because I just think millennial is too broad. An 18-year-old and a 35-year-old are not the same person.
Well, 18-years now are not millennial.
Oh, is that true? When did that happen?
No, it's because we've been talking about it for like 10 years. So
it's true.
Like nobody's millennial anymore.
Yeah.
Okay.
But, so I think that I would appreciate that. No one is a millennial. So I do think that our audience, like our core audience, is on the older side of the millennial scale, kind of in that like 28 plus. Mm-hmm. They tend to be a bit more urban. People who are interested in kind of creativity in general, who appreciate kind of good storytelling and good video storytelling. But that is our core audience. But I do think if you tell a good story, it ages up, it ages down, it crosses borders. So our audience isn't just domestic. We do have a big international audience as well. Because I think we are telling stories that try to surprise people, show them something they've never seen, or tell them something they didn't know. And hopefully we're doing that kind of in a scale that reaches an audience that is bigger than just our core fan base.
Is the U.S., what is the kind of breakdown, do you know? Or do we ask number questions or not really?
I'm not going to necessarily get it right. I know that the U.S. is the biggest portion of our audience compared to any other country, but I'm not sure what the exact breakdown is. Yeah.
And so talk to us about some of the brand partnerships you're doing and how that relationship works and what the breakdown between the editorial stuff and the branded stuff is.
So one of the other things that happened when our bosses at CNN kind of had this idea is they recognized that the ad space was changing. That pre-roll was not a sustainable future, that programmatic had its own issues, but there was really an opportunity to work with brands on a partnership level to create really great storytelling. And so Great Big Story has always kind of had that fundamental basis, that we are a place that when we do sponsored campaigns, it really is in partnership with brands. You can do that through sponsored edit, so editorial stories that align with themes and topics that are important to brands, that are basically made possible by these brands. So a really great example of that is a campaign that we recently did. We've had 2 seasons with LensCrafters. And LensCrafters' motto is See Good Daily. And they wanted a series of stories about people who are doing good in their own world and community. So taking that tagline of See Good Daily and not taking it so literally, and not needing integration of the product and not needing stories to be about the brand itself, but just around the motto and mantra that the brand stands for. And so we're able to work in partnerships with lots of brands on that level. And then it scales all the way up to full branded. And so there's our branded team, which is called Courageous, who works hand in hand with brands.
In the same office?
Yes. They have a much nicer floor than we do, but only because they keep it in better shape than we do. And so they work in partnership with brands to really tell branded stories, still in the Great Big Story voice and point of view, because I think that's extremely important, that if you are someone who comes to Great Big Story and watches something, you want to feel like whether you're watching a piece of branded content or a piece of editorial content, you know what you're getting there, that it's not going to be a bait and switch, that you don't feel like you came for one thing but were delivered something completely different.
Mm-hmm. And so they deal with the kind of revisions and is that process all done by Courageous, or that's
all the branded content is done by Courageous, yeah. And
there's no like Chinese wall where you guys can't collaborate, or
we're extremely collaborative.
Or you're completely working together. Yeah. You just have,
and we need to, or else I think you will get that kind of bait and switch that I said that we were trying to avoid, where they would be creating content that didn't make sense for the Great Big Story kind of environment and ecosystem and to our audience.
Yeah. Also, one thing that is kind of it's tough nowadays. There's a lot of digital publishers. There's a lot of new companies coming out, a lot of inspiring videos, a lot of people doing similar things. How do you kind of keep differentiating yourself? How do you pick the the ideas that you go for? How does that process? Because that's kind of the only thing that you can really use to defend yourself.
Absolutely. We try not to get distracted by it and stay focused on just really great storytelling and really being true to what Great Big Story is. So when we started 2 years ago, we had that same question for ourselves. Yes, this landscape is crowded and we are the new person on the block. So how do we make sure that we show up and don't just look like somebody else, not become one of the copycat creators that it all just kind of looks the same. So from the very beginning, it's in our DNA to be different and to choose the other door. And so part of that really comes down to the types of stories that we tell. And so surprise for us is the #1 North Star for every story that we aim to tell. So we're not looking on the front pages of papers and the news coverage for inspiration for the types of stories that we're going to tell, because I think that that's a place where a lot of other people play. And so for us, it's all about kind of, again, choosing that other door, finding another way into the story, asking ourselves, is this pitch, is this story idea surprising? Is it something that you already knew? Have you read about it in a billion different places? Is it unexpected? So not just being untold, is it unexpected? Is there a twist on the way you perceive that the story would have happened? So that way, hopefully, when you watch a Great Big Story, you're seeing something that you really haven't seen before and you haven't heard about it before. And that is kind of one of the true thumbprints of what makes Great Big Story.
I'm looking at right now the Story Hunter account for Great Big Story, and I know that when you started, you posted a bunch of calls for pitches to a lot of our top documentary filmmakers around the world, and you received a bunch of pitches from the ground up. And then you have to kind of deal with, how do you look at, how do you figure out what independent filmmaker you want to work with, and then how do you help them or develop the idea and communicate to all of this kind of distributed production network that you've built out with us, and how do you manage that?
It's a big undertaking, and it's funny because I think about the way we work with our kind of freelance network and our Story Hunter network very similarly to the way I think about the way we work with Courageous on branded content. It's the same idea, is that if you come to Great Big Story has a look, it has a point of view, it has a feeling. Everything should feel like it was made and lives within this world. We never want to feel like we're an aggregator, where we're just collecting a bunch of good stories, but they all kind of have their own kind of feeling and look and feel to them. And so we establish kind of the Bible of what a Great Big Story looks like. That could mean our interview shots, which I think if you've seen a lot of Great Big Stories, you'll recognize that symmetry is a very big thing for us. Wes Anderson in the very beginning has always kind of been our spirit animal. We do like
shout out to Wes.
We do like kind of those like big wide full body shots. We don't do a ton of kind of like that profile shot, but we have a look and feel particularly.
What about this shot we have?
I don't know. I haven't seen it yet.
It's a nice shot. Here you go. Here we go. There we are.
Oh, see, a full body shot.
Yeah, we got the full body shot.
Close.
None of these shots.
Pretty good. Nicely done. But so we have a lookbook for kind of like, okay, if you're going to shoot something for us, like this is the Bible of what a Great Big Story looks like, and our producers are absolutely incredible. And for every time they've worked with someone, they'll have things that went really well and things that they're like, oh, I didn't get that back the way that I wanted it to. So that Bible is a living, breathing thing that gets added onto, and new things added to it every single day. So that again, if we're working with people in the field, they understand kind of how it should look. And to date, we've told stories in 99 countries. And so that means that we've been working with a lot of people in a lot of different countries who have all kind of hopefully gotten this Bible in their hands. And then it's also assigning a producer on our team to every single story, because they are the ones who understand our voice better than anybody, obviously. And so they are the ones who are really putting the stories together, working with the freelance team on the ground. But we get all of that footage back in-house, and we script it in-house and we edit it in-house, again, to make sure that it always kind of looks and feels like Great Big Story, and it really holds kind of that brand voice very closely.
Yeah. So the Bible is like what the core. You don't have a name. You call it it.
But I think we do call it the Bible.
Call it the Bible. It's the Bible for great big stories.
It is. Yeah. And it's funny that sort of things that we put in it. It's as simple as please remember to white balance your camera, which you don't know that you need to put that in your Bible until you get footage back that hasn't been white balanced.
We did that?
We're all good?
We did that.
All the way up to kind of just the details of shots. The beauty is we've now, I think, told close to 1,800 videos. So we also have lots of links and references, North Stars, for particular pieces, for how we want them to look. And we've also made our own videos, because there's no better way. Yeah, there's no better way to show than to do it by example. So we have a few kind of videos that we've done that say, hey, this is how you actually shoot a great big story interview. We also think about character. Character is a really big thing for us. Because we are a storytelling brand, we think a lot about emotion and engagement. And so there is a difference between a story and a fact. And so a lot of times we'll get pitches that are just kind of facts. So this thing exists. And when we see pitches like that, it's great this thing exists, but then what?
Yeah.
How do we actually get 2-3 minutes out of the fact that thing exists?
Yeah.
So character is what's very important, because that character will give you the ability to go and tell people that thing exists, but then you're also kind of getting their personal journey, their personal story, their feelings about the thing that exists, how they discovered it, how it makes them feel. And so it becomes a lot more relatable. You can have someone to connect to and then hopefully tap into kind of that emotional impact that we always think about for our stories as well.
Yeah,
so those are kind of two really big things.
Yeah, that's always tough. Like I used to be a foreign correspondent as well, and it's always tough when you're working with local teams. You want the authenticity of the local story and everything. But you also need to have the worldview of this is new to us. But like it's the funny thing where sometimes they think, this is normal, but it's actually new to you. Or they think this is new, and you're like, we've heard about that a million times. Yeah.
And we are very, very picky when it comes to pitches. So I have a reputation amongst my bosses that I'm a stickler, and that I say no to their ideas all the time, even though they technically founded the company. But that's the truth. Like you asked earlier, how do you deal with the new people in the market, and how do you make sure that you're still evolving? Like it comes down to the stories that we tell. So even in our team of producers, many of whom have been with the company since day one, I think their success rate on pitches is around 20%.
Yeah.
And they're the people who live and breathe this company every single day. And so I don't want anyone to ever be discouraged if they pitch ideas to a great big story and they don't get through, because that's kind of part of what the company is to keep that bar really high on like what it is that is a surprising story.
Yeah. I'm looking at the human condition call for pitches, and that's more than 200 pitches and 12 commissions.
Is that a 20% success rate?
No, that's less.
That's really less.
But these are people that are getting to know you.
Yeah, exactly.
And this could be multiple. That could be multiple pitches. From the same person and other stuff.
Yeah.
And so in general, when you look at storytelling, don't you have to still think about distribution and engagement? When you're building a story, or do you completely just focus story, and not even think about how it'll play in the distribution side of things, or is that the business side?
So I recognize that people consume content in different ways on different platforms. And so when we think about all the social networks that we have at our disposal, Facebook and YouTube are really the main ones. We don't put different versions of the pieces up on the two different sites. Which when we started, a lot of people said, on Facebook, don't put anything up that's more than 30 seconds, cover it in text because everybody listens to it on mute. And we basically wanted to buck that trend, because for us, if we said we were going to be creating micro documentaries and we said that quality was key, we really wanted to be true to that. And we've actually found quite a bit of success with our stories even at 2 to 3 minutes long, on Facebook, even without text on top of it, hopefully because they are really great, surprising, engaging stories with good visuals that are going to make you want to turn the sound on.
Yeah.
But when you think about other platforms, Instagram stories, for us that's really about building a community and community engagement, because people don't consume like pure storytelling on those platforms. That still doesn't mean that you can't use them as part of building your brand.
And with the Instagram story, you actually cut it down. You take footage that you're going to produce for different videos and you cut it.
We have a lot of different techniques that we use, and I think one of my favorite ones that we've just started doing, which is purely about community engagement and talking to our audience and engaging with them, is we do these quiz shows. Where basically, like, if you've watched the video, you could go to our Instagram story. We use the poll, ask questions. People can swipe up to watch the full video if they see that first before watching it. And it's really just a way to kind of get people talking and talking with us and engaging with our content in new and unique ways beyond just sitting and watching the piece, or after they've watched it, what do they want to talk about? Yeah.
So Facebook, YouTube, some Instagram. Are your big distribution channels?
And we have our own, we've got the Great Big Story website, we've got the Great Big Story app, and I'm always most excited about our Apple TV or OTT, because quality is such a big thing for us. It definitely works to watch it on a screen this size. It also, I don't know if the TV's in the image, but there's a TV that you can watch it on this size, and really kind of rabbit hole and sit and watch a bunch in a row.
Yeah, I watch it, but that's the thing with Apple TV. It they just keep replaying it.
Yeah.
Or Netflix now. It's like, wait, I didn't want to spend an hour and a half watching. I was trying to just watch one show. And how do you deal with when, like, the Facebook changes the algorithm, different things that could affect the way that your distribution works?
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
So that's why I love that we bucked the trend of having to create content that people say would work on Facebook by creating really authentic storytelling. People are engaging with it automatically. And so we find that the algorithm changes don't actually affect us all that much, because our traffic is primarily organic. Our audience is extremely loyal and engaged. They're the ones who are choosing to like and share and watch and tag their friends regardless. And so for us, it's really being true to the brand, the storytelling, and the audience comes with that.
Fernando Teixeira, who I actually know from Brazil when I was a foreign correspondent for Bloomberg, he said, what do you value more? Pitches of countries that are kind of developed countries like the US or the European countries, or the less known countries in Africa or Asia, or does it not matter?
I don't think it matters. Our motto is always story first. And so if it's a good story, it doesn't matter whether it's in the US or if it's in Pakistan or if it's in Australia. We've told stories in 99 countries, and so I'm really pushing the team to find that story in country 100. It's probably the only time I've put pressure on, like, find me a story in a specific location.
Right now.
Yeah.
Be country 100.
The list of countries that we've not told stories in. I should put that up. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
But in reality, it's really story first. And so trying to figure out if it's a story that we would do. And then no matter where it is, we'll go into it.
So he's in Lisbon, so Fernando, pitch the story.
Yes.
Have you done Portugal?
We have done Portugal.
You've done Portugal. You won't be number 100, but you can still get the story in. Cindy Burgess is asking, how can we pitch to you? What's the process?
Yeah. So there is, through the Story Hunter platform, if you are a Story Hunter member, there is hopefully, and if there isn't, I'll update it.
No, there's a bunch of calls for pitches.
Got it.
If you don't see it, and you really think you can produce great stuff that that reaches, that would be perfect for them, update your profile with your best videos, because you also they have a curation set, so only people who have reached to kind of produced other stories, gotten good reviews, or or verifications of their previous work can see it. But if you think you should have access, update your profile and then send an email to support@storyhunter.com. Stephanie's very happy I mentioned that. Yeah, and then there's calls for pitches for different. They have. I had it up. They have amazing animal tales. I don't want to get into everyone. You'll see it, but a lot of if you look at their playlists on YouTube, then you can think. You essentially have an assignment. You can think. I think I could pitch a story for that playlist. That's probably a good way to do it. But
and for the pitch itself, definitely send through kind of like, what do you think the headline of the story is? Like, why do you think this is surprising or relevant to our audience in one sentence? Like, convince us with just one sentence why this is a story we should tell. Then obviously go into the description of what the story is, who the character is, because we're going to ask that no matter what. So just kind of come with a character in mind. And visuals. So video is obviously a visual medium, and so there needs to be a reason to turn on the camera. So if there are any links, any other videos, something that you can send to give us a sense of what the story would look like, we'll always go looking for those or ask for those if we don't get them.
Yeah, headline first, like Matt Winkler. That was his.
What's it?
So we're gonna wrap up, but we actually have a screen up event in London where we're going to have Connor Bowles, the new London bureau chief for a Great Big Story, right?
Let's call him that.
And he's heading up international.
Yeah, so we just opened our London office last April, so they've been there for about a month now. So Connor is someone who's been with the Great Big Story team since day one. I think he's literally the first person that I hired. And so when we opened London, we sent him over there to open that office, to lead that team. And so he's got a team of 4 producers who kind of basically cover anything over the pond. Yeah, and you can learn more about that at the London Screen Up, May 24th. And you can follow us for more information. And hopefully we'll see you at the Screen Up, and we'll continue the conversation. Absolutely. Yeah. All right. Thanks.
You.